Hello and welcome to Agri-History Tropical Edition. This will be the final episode of Agri-History Tropical Edition. In this episode, you'll cover 3 spices in Asia, their domestication and history. This includes ginger, cardamom, and saffron, alongside 2 spices from South America, allspice and paprika. We will start with ginger. Ginger had its origins in the Indo-Malayan region and is now widely distributed across many countries as a spice and a medicinal plant. Merchants took ginger from India to the Mediterranean in the 1st century CE, and the Arabs introduced ginger to West Africa and the Pacific Islands in the 13th century CE. Many of these tropical countries now grow ginger as a cash crop, with India being the largest producer of ginger at 7,500 metric tons during the 2006-2007 time period. There are several different strains of ginger. Cochin ginger and Wyandan ginger are cultivated in India. Chinese ginger is cultivated in China. Budrum Gold is cultivated in Australia, and Jamaican ginger is cultivated in Jamaica. The Chinese, Tibetan, and Arab medicine associations of that ancient era recognized the medicinal value of ginger and used it quite extensively for many centuries. The ancient medicine style called Ayurveda of India was invented approximately 5,000 years ago, and ginger was mentioned in the oldest of these manuscripts. It was also mentioned in the Quran but not in the Bible, which makes sense since ginger was not introduced to the Middle East until much later. Ginger is a rhizome crop, with the highest level of genetic diversity being found in India and China, where the center of origin is located. The geographical distribution, alongside mutations within the asexual propagated species, seems to be responsible for the majority of the genetic diversity of ginger. Although the crop is sterile, the cuttings produced by people for propagation purposes have highly mutagenic qualities, allowing for a decent amount of genetic diversity within cultivars. In the ancient Ayurvedic medicine, ginger was used to alleviate morning sickness and motion sickness. Ginger was mixed with different types of pepper, such as black pepper and a closely related species, to make a medicine called trikaku, which apparently relieved flatulence. Insert fart joke here. It was also used in the medications of ancient times for respiratory disorders and fevers. Now, once again, this is a history channel, not a medicine channel. If you have a sickness, go see a doctor. Now onto cardamom. Cardinal is another species in the ginger family. The use of cardinal dates back to the 2nd century BC. The wild form of the species is pollinated by solitary bees, while the domesticated form is pollinated by social bees, due to being grown in areas where solitary bees are not found in high numbers. As a result, the domestication of cardinal caused a change in the flower shape. In wild populations of cardinal, flowering began in mid-April and continued up to mid-September, with a peak in June or July. Similar to many other species found in that forest area, the flowers of the wild form tend to grow horizontally on the ground, becoming covered in leaf litter. Domesticated cardinal produces a lot more flowers, 6,751 flowers to be precise, and the wild one is estimated to be a mere 2,573 flowers. Other changes in the flower behavior include an increase in the length of the labium and corolla tube of the flowers, as well as the amount of nectar and sugar in the flowers. This occurred after domestication. In terms of vegetative changes, there's an increase in all vegetative parts of cardamom when domesticated.
which makes sense considering that the vegetative part, specifically the rhizome, is what is used for the spice. Although there are no reproductive barriers between the wild and domesticated forms, in practice, cross-pollination doesn't happen due to the fact that they have two different pollinators that they attract. The domestication of Cardinal seems to be relatively recent, and this cultivated form of the species is only 200 years old. As such, future researchers may use this species to discuss and learn about domestication syndrome. Now on to Saffron. Now on to Saffron. Saffron is a very expensive spice that often has a price tag that goes up to 30,000 euros per kilogram, and is the most expensive spice in the world. The species comes from crocus saffron that is found in Kashmir, India, as well as Afghanistan, Iran, and Pakistan. This species thrives in soils that cannot be utilized for agriculture, and in times gone by it was used as a painkiller for women in childbirth, as well as alcohol addictions and rheumatism. A researcher known as Dr. Thomas Smith learned that the saffron crocus is a sterile triploid species that cannot be bred. This species formed through crossbreeding of tetraploid and diploid strains of Crocus cartwhitianus, a species found in Greece. This species has been cultivated for 3,500 years and is the mainstay for many farmers in Mediterranean countries. With this new knowledge, it is possible to rebreed saffron back into existence through crossbreeding, and as such, make new cultivars. Next, you'll cover the origins and history of paprika. Paprika is a spice made by grinding up the dried fruit of different strains of hot pepper and sweet pepper. The taste, heat, and flavor varies from strain to strain that's used. This spice was made originally in southern Mexico and Central America. It was also found in the Antilles Islands. It was used both as a healing medicine as well as a seasoning for food. It is said that Christopher Columbus discovered and introduced this spice to Europe. Ever since it was brought to the New World, it was spread throughout Europe, including Hungary, where it became a staple food for many Hungarian dishes. It is the Hungarians that named the spice paprika. This spice was not introduced to Western Europe and the rest of the Western world until the mid-1900s. Zoos currently use this spice as well as a seasoning for flamingo food in order to maintain the pink pigmentation of this bird. In current year, Hungary, Spain, good chunks of South America and the Mediterranean, as well as India and California, are all major producers of paprika. Now on to our last spice we'll cover for this. Let's talk about the history of allspice. Pimenta dioica is a scientific name for allspice, which is named so because it has the flavor of both nutmeg, clove, and cinnamon within it. The Mayan natives utilized this plant for embalming purposes in ancient times. Later on in 1492, during his first visit to North America, he mistook allspice berries for the kernels of peppercorn when he first went to South America. For this reason, the Spaniards called allspice pimenta, the Spanish word for black pepper. This also became the genus epithet of the species. Allspice reached England in 1601, and Philip Miller, famed for his Gardner Dictionary, grew it in his indoor, stove-heated greenhouse in the 1730s. The species epithet, dioica, came from the fact that this plant had male and female flowers. The requirement for cross-pollination may partially explain why allspice never expanded beyond the South American areas. In the 17th to 19th centuries, the berries were often used for preservatives for meats during long voyages, and in Scandinavia, allspice is a common preservative for fish. In current year, whenever you buy a 5-pepper blend, allspice is one of those quote-unquote peppers. And allspice is currently the only major spice where the commercial production is confined to the Western Hemisphere. It is grown extensively in Jamaica, where it has been grown since the 16th century, and continues to dominate world production. Well, that's about everything. Stay lit, fam.